This is Gemara Avodah Zarah Daf Mem Dalid. I'm rolling on the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Gimel Amid Beis, which really is going to piggyback off of the previous Mishnah on the previous Daf of Mem Beis Amid Beis, which is the halacha of how one could discard of a Avodah Zarah made of mateches, which the Mishnah taught us. You could throw it to the Yam HaMelech. Says our Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi Omer, another thing you could do is seichik v'zeir l'ruach. You could grind it up and throw it to the wind. Oy matul yam, or throw it into the ocean. Amr lo Chachamim said, Avu nasa zevel. If you do so, it becomes fertilizer. Shenem li'yadu avgiyadcha me'uma menacherem. You can't have any benefit at all. So Chachamim are coming along, and they're arguing that this form of discarding will not work. Says the Gemara Tanya of the Rabbi Yossi, the pasuk already says, "V'eschatoschem," as we turn over to Mem Daled Amud Aleph, "V'eschatoschem asher asisem esegel," that you committed to the Egel Hazav. Lakachti v'eser v'eser v'eish. I took it and burned it in a fire. V'ekois oisai tachan eitev adesher daklafar. I pounded it, grinded it till it was fine as dust. V'eser shchayis afar. I threw the dirt. El nachal hayarad min hahar. Then I throw it all into the ocean. So what do we see? Moshe Rabbeinu took the Egel Hazav, ground it up, and threw it into the water. So says the Gemara, so what do we see? We see like the first sheet on the Mishnah, not like the Chachamim, Amrulai, Misham Raya, Harei Omer v'Yizar al Penei Hamayim. But the pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu took it and he sprinkled it over the water, Vayishak as Bnei Yisrael, and then what did he do next? And he made the Yidden drink, Vayashk. The whole purpose was that Klal Yisrael should be checked like a saita. However, in a regular quote-unquote case of Avodah Zarah, it would not suffice to scatter it to the wind. Amrlan Rabbi Yossi, the pasuk already says, "Gam es makom." The Melech Asa went and got rid of Macham that was made by the grandmother. And what happens? 1 second. Vayodek, that was made from an Ashira. Terrible thing. Amrulai Misham Raya Avyodek, excuse me. Vayidak, Vayisra Benachal Kidron ground it up and burned it in the valley. So what do we see? We see that we're not worried that the ashes or other entities should be become fertilizer like the Chachamim said. Explains the Gemara, Amrulai, Misham Raya, Nachal Kidron, Einai Megadel, Tzmacha, Nachal Kidron doesn't grow anything, and therefore we don't have to be concerned. Veloi says, really, does it not grow? Ask Gemara, Vatani into the Raisa Elohein, Mitarin Ba'ama. It says the Mishnah, those that are mixed in the Amma, the channel of water, they sold as Ve'evel. So what do we see? We see that seemingly the valley does grow appropriate vegetation. Says about the different areas. Continues the Gemara quoting the relevant psukim. My miflatzta. What does the pasuk mean? Miflatzta, and it says her miflatzes. Rav Yehuda dava maflia l'sinusa. That the way she was together with an idol was a mafli, was an extreme form of litzanusa of depravity, of the words of terrible stuff. That what do they do with this Avodah Zarah? They made a zachros, they made a form of an aver and slept with it every single day, and that is how she acted together with this dreadful Avodah Zarah. Amr then Rav Yosi says, Rav Yosi, but look, if I remember the pasuk here, it says, "Kitis nachash nechoshes asher asa Moshe," and it was fully ground up. That which Moshe made. Amrullah misham raya. Hurry, the pasuk says, "Yimrjam Moshe asil chasarav." Lech, what does it mean? Make yourself a tzarav. Lech mishalach. You can't give over something that's not yours. So that's how you should take it and create into this figure that's necessary. So explains the Gemara, because you can't answer something which is not yours. Over there by the Nachash, in reality, they didn't have to grind it up at all. Chizkiah saw that the Yidden were being over Aveiros with it. They were making this mistake. Amad v'kitzai. He practically went and ground it up, and as much as la halacha, it was not so yet necessary. So Amr Lahen, Rav Yosi says to them, the pasuk says, "V'yazu sham and the Pelishtim left their idols. V'yasem David v'anashav. Vayasem David and his people." So what does this word Vayisayim mean? Umay mashma dahai Vayisayim David. Where do we know this word Vayisayim David lishna? Dizaruye. Who? Where do you know that the word means scattering, throwing it to the winds? Kedevakargun Rav Yosef says the pasuk Tizreim Baruch Tisayim Tizreim in a wind Tisayim. What's the targum? Tizriname v'ruach taltalinem. You scatter them, and the wind will blow them off. So Amr Loi. So continues the Chachamim. Like Varnemar Misham Raya. Harei Oimer v'Yisra from Beish. The pasuk already says that they burnt it in a fire. The pasuk does not say, and he burned them and then he scattered them, but rather it says straight, Vayisayim Shema Mina. From here we learn Vayisayim Mamish. That we learn the word Vayisayim literally, that they carried them away. So concludes the Gemara Mikol Makayim Kashu Kraya Dadi. We lemaisa have a stira in the psukim that the pasuk talks about burning these Avodah Zarahs, burning the idols, which shows that they cannot have any benefit from them. Whereas the pasuk by David HaMelech says that they carry them away, seemingly indicating you could have ana. Explains the Gemara, the Rav Huna Rami. Rav Huna asks the stira, and David went and they gave it to the fire. And the pasuk says, Vayisayim, and he carried them away. So what do we do? Explains the Gemara, like Kasha, kan kodem shaba iti agiti, kan la'achar shaba iti agiti. And the Gemara proves this from Sugim Dechsev in the last hour line. Vayikach zeteres, malkam al roishay, umishkola kikar zof. That says the pasuk, they took it as that David removed the crown from his head, and how much did it wear? Kikar of Zaf, Umi Shari. But did David really wear this as a crown? But it says the Gemara, what about Yisar Nanin? It was also Bana. So Amram Nachman, Ite Agiti. Bo Bitzla. Ite Agiti came and nullified it. Mishkla Kikar Zav in the second white line, that its weight was a Kikar of Zav. If it weighed so much, how can you put it on his head? It doesn't mean you actually put it on his head, it was right to put it on his head. It was a magnet, and Evan Shavis on it, to have a Zadara law which elevated it. It doesn't actually rest in his hand. Rav Elazar, Amar Evan Yikara Isaba was a precious stone, Sheshave Kikar Zav. Wasn't actually Kikar Zav, was only the same value, and therefore wasn't actually so heavy. Continues the Gemara, where the 2 dots, 10 lines from the bottom, another detail about the crown of David HaMelech. Says the pasuk, this is what it was, because I guarded your idea, says the pasuk. My Kamar, what exactly is David HaMelech saying? Says David HaMelech, as a reward for guarding your halachos, I have this crown as a testimony. So what is the eidos that this crown gave. The David HaMelech will put the crown in the place of his tefillin, and it would fit him. So David said the fact that he followed all the halachos, he had a crown that was so perfect, that as a testimony, as an eidos, the fact that he was worthy to be melech. Asks the Gemara, the obvious kasha, where was David HaMelech's tefillin? Amar Eshmael bar Rav Yitzchak, Makayim yesh barosh, famously, there's a place in your head, sheroi leniach v'shtei tefillin. We have room in our head to put two tefillin. Of course, we know the Sfardim put two tefillin back to back, and that's what it means. It was in the place of the tefillin. Continues the Gemara quoting Psukim v'yotziu. It's Ben HaMelech leading Olavas HaNizer. They brought out the king's son. They put the Nizer, V'eseidos, and the Eidos upon him. Nizer, what is that? Zuklila. This is a crown. Eidos, what does that refer to? Amar Vidam Rav Eidos hu lebeis David. It was an Eidos. It was a testimony to the house of David. Kol haroyu lamalchus hoylamta. Whoever was worthy to be a king was able to wear the crown. So one of the nisim of the crown of David HaMelech was that it felt like a glove. Those who were roi to be a melech. Continues the boss him 3 lines to the bottom of Adoniah ben Chagis. And Adoniah ben Chagis misnasi limar ani emloich said, I'll be king. He tried to put the crown on his head, but it didn't fit him. And the psukim continue that they created, and they created for him. Where did the pasuk just go? 1 second. What's going on over here? Says the psukim, I apologize. Says the psukim, vayisayim loy, on the very bottom of Memdalad Amud Aleph, vayisayim loy, vayas, excuse me, one more time. And Adoniah made for himself rechav broshim, chariots and horsemen, v'chamishim ish, rotzim lefanim. And there were 50 men running in front of him. Ma'ir Abusa, what does the pasuk teach us? Tana going to the Raisa. Kulam nitule techul. That these runners in front of Adoniah, says the pasuk, explains the Raisa, they did not have a spleen and their feet were messed up, and the reason being was that they were able to run without feeling any pain, running over thorns, etc., in front of the chariot. We turn over to Memdalad Amud Beis, and we continue with a new Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Sha'al Peruklis, Ben Phaloisvis, it's Rav Gamliel ba'akoi. Peruklis Ben Phaloisvis inquired Rav Gamliel and Akoi, She'erechet Zemechad Shel Ephroditi, while he was in the bathhouse of Ephroditi, a fascinating Mishnah, Amar Lei, so he said to him, Ksiv, it says in your Torah, Le'ev that we had Chamba and Acherem, shall hold anything back of the property. But if that's the case, so how are you allowed to bathe over here? Why are you bathing in the bathhouse? Amar Lo Rav Gamliel says, I can't answer you. I'm in a bathhouse. When he went out, Amar Lo Yani Lo Basi Bigvulahi. Rav Gamliel says, I did not come into the property that was hers. He ba bigvula. She came to my property. Bigvuli. Ein oimrim naasei merchatz. We do not say noi l'Aphrodite. We do not say the bathhouse is an adornment of Aphrodite, the Avodah Zarah, but rather el oimer nas Aphrodite noi lemerchatz. But rather this Aphrodite becomes a noi for the bathhouse. Tovar acher, another reason. If you give a lot of money, would you not go into your Avodah Zarah undressed, or balkari mashtem afanav, or one who's a balkari, or use the bathroom in front of it? Basically, for enough money, you would act in such a demeaning manner in front of the Avodah Zarah. Zu aymedes al piv abiv. Yet this one stands at the opening of the gutter. V'cholam mashtinim lefanel. And everyone uses the bathroom in front of her. The pasuk says that why are they allowed to do this in front of their gods? Shenoi gaboy misham eloika. What this means is they treat it like a god. But that which is not treated like a god is going to be mutter, and the Mishnah clearly differentiating within the level of Avodah Zarah. For a quick moment, look at the Tab Rashi. Rashi points out that this fruklis was a type of Avodah Zarah, and Aphrodite was a different type of Avodah Zarah. V'Amerchatz Oimid was in her chatzar. And Rav Gamliel is teaching that because they act in such a mannerism, therefore you're allowed to use the bathhouse as well. As Rashi spells out in the third hour line, the merchatz leftover noyu, elanasav roditi noy lemerchatz. Nimsa she mishtamshay v'hi tefila v'uka, that she herself was the Avodah Zarah, and the bathhouse was just a type of item that they used. They used the bath, but that itself wasn't the Avodah Zarah. And we begin the Gemara. Says the Gemara, V'echi avad achi. How could Rav Gamliel use this bathhouse? You're allowed to think in Torah everywhere except for a bathhouse. And if you're going to tell me Rav Gamliel spoke in a secular language, and that's why it's allowed, but Abaye says, Dvarim shel chol. Mutzlam Rav Lashem Kodesh. But Dvarim shel Kodesh, Aslam Rav Lashem Chol, just because you talk English, for example, doesn't give you a free pass to talk and learning in the bathroom. Tana says the Gemara, Sheyaytze Amar La'in Meshivin B'merchatz. Says the Gemara, when Gamliel left, he said we cannot answer in a bathhouse. That he only answered afterwards. Amar Rav Chamer Yosef Ravi Amar Rav Yeshua Tshuva Genuva Hishiva Rav Gamliel Leisen Hegman. Rav Gamliel answered a deceptive answer to that Hegman, that official. Vani Aimer Nai say in a Genuva. It wasn't a deceptive answer. What does that mean? Maigan Venusai. What was this answer to Kamer Leizu? Medes Al Piva Biv. What exactly was he saying? That they all use the bathroom in front of it? Mayave, who cares? Rava, famously, we know that Avodah Zarah called Par. That what? That the way to worship Avodah Zarah was defecating in front of the idol. Shemifar in Levana b'chol yain. Ve'inoi batal. And yet it didn't lose its status of Avodah Zarah. So why here would that have been a good answer if Gamliel is giving them? V'ani Omer, and I respond, Einoi genuva. Why? Zu Avodasa b'kach. That was the way they served Par. But if here it's not the way that they served Avodah Zarah, but rather it was just the fact that they used the bathroom before they went in to serve this Avodah Zarah. That's the first teretz of exactly what happened. We'll do one more teretz. Amr Abayi says Abayi Gnuvasa Me'achad. The Kamer lay on the last arrow line. Ani Lobasi Bigvula Viba Bigvula Chiba Bigvula Mayhave Batanan. Why do we care Lamaisi? You not only get benefit from the Avodah Zarah. Rav Gamliel's taiva were not like the taiva of others, and only he himself was allowed to use this bathhouse. We'll stop over here, and we'll continue learning the different reasons why he was allowed to use the bathhouse in the next year. Shir Siyata Dishmaya.